All right, we are coming to the last stretch here in our time storying. I hope that you have been able to find some useful things out of our stories, some things that you can take into life, everyday life, and some truths that you can use to take steps toward closer to where Christ is. But last week we were in Matthew 15, and we looked at a story, an interaction between Jesus and a Canaanite woman, where Jesus, really interestingly, kind of says, hey, I'm not here to serve these people, but through the persistence of the woman and her faith, Jesus ends up healing her daughter. And our story today happens right after that. So we're still right at the end of Matthew 15. And verses 29 through 31, Jesus has moved from the place where he had the conversation with the Canaanite woman, and he's moving along the Sea of Galilee, and he comes to a mountain, and he sits on the mountain, and a crowd of people come to him and are bringing people who need healing in different ways. So it says there was a crowd, they were bringing people to his feet, and the crowd was amazed because they saw people who couldn't speak be able to speak, people who were deformed restored in their deformities, people who are lame walk, blind come to see, and they gave glory, the crowd gave glory to God, the God of Israel. So that's kind of the backdrop of our story today. This really, really cool interaction between Jesus and the crowd, these healings happening, miracles, and that's kind of where our story starts. So Matthew 15, 32 through 39, the end of the chapter. It says, now Jesus summoned his disciples and said, I have compassion on the crowd, because they have stayed with me for 3 days and have had nothing to eat. Now I do not want to send them away and have them collapse in their travels. The disciples said to him, Where are we supposed to get food in this desolate place for all of these people? And Jesus responds and says, well, how many loaves of bread do you have? We have 7 loaves and just a few small fish, the disciples say. Now Jesus commanded the crowd to sit, and took the bread, the 7 loaves of bread, and the few small fish. He gave thanks, and he began to break the bread and the fish. And as he broke them, he gave the pieces to the disciples, and the disciples then started giving the pieces to the crowd. And this continued, Jesus breaking the bread and the fish and giving to the disciples, until everyone had eaten, and eaten to their fill. The disciples then went and collected all of the leftover pieces, and it amounted to 7 large baskets of food and fish. Now, amazingly, the crowd, the number of people who ate, just men alone numbered 4,000 people. And there were also women and children there. After everyone had eaten to their fill and the leftovers had been collected, Jesus dismissed the crowd, got onto a boat, and went to the region of let me make sure I got it right, Magadan. And that's the end of our story. Now first, as every week we have started, now who are the major characters in this story?
Jesus.
Jesus.
The disciples.
Disciples.
The people of the crowd.
Yep, in the crowd. The others, I think that might be it. And what do you think would have been the attitude of the crowd? Kind of looking at that beginning, the backdrop of our story. What do you think the crowd is kind of feeling?
They're probably in awe after seeing, well, it says they were amazed.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you continue in the story and realize that they haven't had anything to eat for several days, they're probably getting a little grouchy, maybe a little hangry.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they haven't eaten, but like they're so amazed that they haven't eaten, but it is true. They're getting to the 3-day point, which can't imagine be so amazed about something that you went that long without eating. But what is Jesus's reaction to the crowd right at the beginning of our story? Compassion on the crowd. Now, is there anything in this story that kind of surprises you?
The disciples doubting Jesus, like, not necessarily doubting him, but just not recognizing that if he said that he wanted to feed all of these people, he probably had a plan for it. Because they've seen him doing all these miracles.
Right.
And they're still like, well, now you want to feed these people, but where are we going to get food?
Right. Well, and interestingly enough, in chapter 14, so we're in chapter 15. Chapter 14, Jesus feeds the 5,000. And so they've kind of gone through this before, but even still, they're going, where are we going to get food? What do you expect us to do? Action. Is there anything in Jesus's actions that kind of surprises you?
He didn't just make sure that the crowd was adequately fed, like he made sure that there was an abundance to the point that they had leftovers.
Yeah. And then going back to the crowd, so they started amazed, and we talked about how then there might have been some tension building as they haven't eaten. What about after Jesus performs this miracle and they've all eaten? What do you think maybe the crowd is feeling then?
Satisfied. I'm assuming that they probably still felt amazed because they were so hungry, and they probably recognized that they were in a place where food wasn't just in an abundance. So they probably thought that any food they were going to get, it wasn't going to be enough to satisfy them after 3 days. But then Jesus proved himself to be awesome, as usual, and like gave them even more than they were probably expecting to receive.
Yeah, and I think that's a great kind of transition into how could we use this story how can we share this story with people around us? What about it kind of would be good for the people around us to hear?
I think just that, like, so many times we think that the Lord can't do enough with the things that we have, and so we have a tendency to doubt him and his capabilities and his faithfulness. But like, looking at this story, like, he without a doubt did not have enough food right there available to feed this many people, but he took what little they did have and made it multiply to the point that he was able to feed over 4,000 people. So I think just like the power that God has to be able to take the little bit that we have, whether it's the little bit of faith or the little bit of just energy or whatever it may be, a little bit of hope, and he can use that to do something extraordinary.
Yeah, and I think that's even a great application just for us to obey, that in the meager things that we have to offer, if we make those things available to him, God can do some cool things, or the meager things that life has to offer in general. If he can take loaves and fish and make something big out of that, then he can make something big out of us. So, well, thank you for listening to my story. We'll do it one more time next week, and I hope that we have an opportunity to process this story some more and think about what it means for Jesus to take little and make much out of little.